How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tear Talk. Guys, me and Russ today thought we'd bring you a new case. It's a case involving a 34-year-old former secretary by the name of Brenda Meza, and she is having, or she did have, sexual involvement with a 13-year-old eighth grade boy. So that is her victim. She is technically a female predator, and now she is on the run. Now, I only have one video that covers this case. It's 24 seconds. Let me show this video real quick just to get it out of the way, Russ, and then we can get into our dialogue. This is the only video I found right now, guys, but this case is showing up on my feed.
Right now, police searching for a middle school secretary who is wanted in connection to an alleged relationship that she had with a 13-year-old, according to police. They say that Brenda Meza, who worked at Franklin Middle School, has fled Colorado, trying to avoid being arrested. Meza accused of sexual abuse of a minor. Local police currently working with state and federal agencies to try to track her down. If you have any information about where she may be, you're urged to call the Greeley police.
That's it. Hey, Russ, you have to admit, Russ, lately on our feeds, we've been seeing a lot more on female predators, female groomers.
Yeah, hard to say what the uptick is attributed to. It could be anything from the way our media here in this country runs. It could be because of the news cycle itself. It could be that reporting is getting better, although we've seen so much seen so many cases that where the school drops the ball. So it's hard to, ascribe one particular facet that the uptick might be on that. But yes, definitely an uptick.
Yeah, and guys, this should be taken as serious as a male. I mean, me and Russ has covered both male groomers, pedophiles. Same thing as we've also covered females. I know very little about Brenda, but this is what I got. Brenda Meza is a 34-year-old former secretary and activity sponsor at Franklin Middle School in Greeley, Colorado, part of the Greeley-Evans School District 6. She worked the front office, helped with cross-country, and advised a games club. That put her in daily contact with students and made her familiar, trusted adult on campus. District records and the principal's letter to parents say she'd been employed there since around 2020 and held several roles, including secretary, coach, and substitute teacher. Public reporting is still thin on her deeper biography. No real details on her childhood or long work history, but we know she was married during the time of the alleged abuse and that her husband later became a key witness after she disclosed some of what happened to him. So that sets up a dual identity. You got the responsible school staffer and wife on the surface, and according to investigators, a very different person behind the scenes. So, Russ, again, we really don't know much here. I'm not saying this is the case with her, but I do know sometimes, sadly, a lot of the schools that may have some employees that do have a history, you may only find out later because sometimes these schools don't communicate with each other. So like if I'm a predator and I'm working at a school and eyes are starting to look at me, then I just up and leave. So therefore, most people don't do an investigation. They don't follow up. And now the predator goes to another school, where they can target newer children until they can finally get something. But the problem is that because nothing's been investigated, there's really no information being passed from one school to the other. One school is glad to get rid of the person so they can end the drama, and the other school has no idea who they're really getting. And Russ, and again, I don't know if that's the case here. I don't know if this person has worked in other schools, but you do see that in other cases that me and Russ has covered. That seems to be a pattern. That may not be the pattern here, but just worth mentioning. Russ, given how ordinary she looked on paper, what warning signs, if any, could colleagues or family realistically have seen? I mean,
well, yeah, I think that, that's obviously the real question. There are things where people might think that something is a little bit out of the ordinary. There might be situations where, they just, pass it off to maybe being friendly. I don't think that there were, in this case, a lot of huge red flags. There was one mention where apparently there were a few times that she dropped this particular student off at like 9 p.m. Now, that one thing there kind of does jump out at you. What we haven't seen here is exactly what happened between the anonymous tip that was received, things immediately preceding that anonymous tips, and what went on immediately after that. It's a little bit hard to get a read on, but I do have a few ideas.
And we're definitely going to go over all the details I have on this case. And guys, remember, like Russ said, the 9 o'clock dropping them off, there's context that's now out there that wasn't there prior. And the funny thing, I'm going to be honest with you, Russ, when it comes to female predators, I guess hindsight's 2020, but when you see that, let's say they look to be overly involved with a student, sometimes you dismiss it because it's a female. Yeah, no way would they do this. Look how pretty she is. No way would she be messing with a 13-year-old. So we kind of in our own mind have a bias. Now, if we saw a male with a 13-year-old girl, you would automatically, what is that male doing? Your sensor, your radars are up. But when it comes to a female, they're not always up. And I think that's the thing right now. You have to have your radars up because a predator knows no gender.
I think that's true, but I also think that there is an element of this that there's really is a true more ingrained type of predatory behavior that we tend to see from males. And I'm not excusing anything, but I'm just saying that when you look at the sheer data and the raw numbers, there's a reason for our bias, but the reason for our bias can blind us actually into a sense of complacency and dismissing more of those things.
Yeah, guys, and I've worked with female offenders, and there were some sexual offenders in there, and they don't hide it as much in the female facility as you would find them in a male facility. To be honest with you, some of them have either justified what they've done because some would say that they've been abused, so they decided to start abusing others. I know one story like that where the girl was abused by she was babysitting someone, so she was abused by the father of the child she was babysitting, and then her excuse was she wound up abusing their child to kind of get back at the person that abused her. And then there were ones that just bragged that they were willing to get pregnant by the young kid. They didn't care. It wasn't like if you saw a male in a male pedophile in a male facility, they're going to hide it. One for their own safety, but at a female facility, they kind of blend in to some extent. I mean, I'm sure there's some that are disgusted by it, but it's not as
taboo.
The danger is not as real as you would find in a male facility. Does that make sense, Russ?
Yeah, I think it's definitely less of a Rubicon to cross, less of a social taboo. Once again, not justifying it or giving pause there, but I just think there is kind of that societal norms that just don't seem as outraged by it.
Yeah, and by the way, it doesn't mean that they've accepted it, but it's like Russ said, it's just not really. I don't know. I think maybe they're indifferent to it. As in the male facility, not so much. And I think maybe it's because, is there like a vulnerability tree here, Russ, where if you're a male and you attack a child, it's like jumping a level of vulnerability where maybe if you're a woman and you attack a child, it's just the next level down?
Yeah, I think that there's, different reasons and different assumptions that people have. This conversation here, this is just really about our perception of the way society reacts to this. And so, there could be any number of factors that society reacts and looks upon this thing in any given way.
All right, so I got the next part: the boy, the Instagram DM, and the gender double standard. So we're going to cover this part now of the story. So the alleged victim is a 13-year-old eighth grade boy at Franklin Middle School. So over Thanksgiving break 2025, he found Mesa's Instagram account and followed her. That follow request opened the door to private DMs. According to the arrest affidavit summarized in news coverage, their chats moved from casual talk to flirting, then sexting and new photo exchanges. And between late January and mid-February, they told each other, "I love you," dozens of times. One outlet reports 81 "I love you" messages. So 81 "I love you" message between January 29th and February 12th. When the victim is a boy and the adult is a woman, research shows people are more likely to minimize the abuse or label him lucky, even though male victims of female perpetrated abuse describe serious long-term harm. Studies on public perception find female sex offenders are often portrayed as less dangerous and more romantic, which can blunt outrage and delay disclosure. So, the next question I got here, Russ, but we have a couple of things we could discuss here. But the next question I got here is, how different do you think public reaction? We kind of touched on this. How different do you think public reaction would be if if this was a 34-year-old man, a male staff member, and a 13-year-old girl with the same facts?
Yeah, I think that you would just see a complete uptick in the amount of coverage and perhaps more commentary and less ad space on like what we just saw with the video that you played.
Yeah, now it's unique here because it says the third. Now, by the way, there's no excuse here, but if you got to break it down. The 13-year-old boy reached out to her because that's what I got here, and then eventually went from casual talk to flirting. So the moment he started DMing her, the moment she responded or didn't report it or whatever is, that's where she's in the initial wrong anyway. Correct? Like, why would you prolong the dialogue? The moment this child starts to DM you, as a school professional, your red flag should have gone up. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Well, I agree with it, but I think that the real context of it is this is what grooming is. Just because he initiated contact does not mean that he wasn't led to do that contact through other things that she might have said, intimated, or given hints at. And that's an attempt, perhaps, on her part to minimize what she did and to give her a chance to make sure that what was about to happen was reciprocated, because there's a lot less danger, there's a lot less jeopardy in doing it that way. Because if she initiates the contact and says something, and then he reports it or says something to a friend, then she faces a more serious jeopardy in that. So this could be, absolute grooming in order for her to actually get that first contact initiated towards her.
And this may be her. I mean, I'm not saying, sometimes these predators, they have more victims than just the one we see. But the reason that they're doing this on Instagram, which is easily messages that could be retrieved. So this may be her first time crossing the line, because she's not as prepared as other groomers that we've worked with, that we've seen, Russ, that use like sessions and Snapchats. I mean, I don't know if it looks like he DM'd her through Instagram. So, for someone that would be a predator, that'd be pretty risky.
Yeah, but that assumes that we don't know where she was going to end up taking it to, and all other things being equal, and from what we've seen in other cases, the degrees to which some of these male predators have acted out has gone far beyond an intention to simply groom and get gratification. We saw recently in the Madison Fields case. Truly, that was human trafficking for certain. We saw I forget the other one where the young
Kelly
girl,
Busby.
Yeah, she was killed, and that was part of a deeper, more darker modus operandi of the predator. I don't think that in this case that this predator, certainly dark, not to say it wasn't, but for a different level and for a different reason.
I like what you said. This 13-year-old kid probably didn't just decide to randomly message her. There's probably something going on behind the scenes where then he finally decided to maybe try to continue the interaction outside of the school. So there maybe is a lot of stuff that happened that actually makes him think it's okay to message the secretary.
Yeah, so
outside of school hours.
when she's in the process of grooming, if we're assuming that that's what happened, it's just a trail of breadcrumbs. She mentions something that she posted on her Instagram account, and then he thinks, I know how to look that up, and it continues from there. So we don't know to what level she was plotting and planning, but that's why we can't take at face value the fact that he looked her up first out of what reason. Well, something in there, his curiosity was stirred for some reason. Now, whether she did the stirring intentionally or unintentionally, we can't say, but what we can do is look at it and say, this fits a well-known pattern of things that happen in the dark world around us.
Yeah, so definitely before the DM on Instagram, there's obviously other interactions that they probably had.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the affidavit lays out classic grooming behavior. Meza allegedly told the boy she felt like she'd known him in another life, framing their bond as faded and special. She's said to have become jealous when she saw him talking with girls his own age, reacting like a possessive girlfriend instead of a school employee. Seen this in other cases. Investigators say she supplied him with marijuana edibles and alcoholic buzzball cocktails and recovered photos of him drinking and holding marijuana blunts that she took. One of the most quoted lines she allegedly told him is that his manhood was bigger than her husband's, sexualizing the child and humiliating her spouse in a single comparison. All of this sits on top of those I love you messages and constant attention that made the abuse feel like a relationship rather than a series of crimes. So looking at these details, Russ, another life, jealousy, drugs, and alcohol, which part strikes you as the clearest sign this is calculated grooming rather than a momentary lapse?
Well, I think the fact that she so easily strayed over the line with drugs, was that attempt to, blunt any chance of him calling it quits with regards to the line that they were tiptoeing up to. And so, actually, furnishing a minor with drugs and then using that, to blunt any self-control or ability to logically think things through was, probably, her attempt to, continue down that path. And so I think that, that's a big part of what she was doing. The fact that she was so willing to cross that line so quickly. And so we don't know for sure like what the timetable on that was, but she seemed to feel that was necessary for some reason. And I think that's a big indicator. It also, to me, is a potential indicator that this is not necessarily her first time. And I think that is the one big thing that jumps out at me, the willingness to use, drugs and alcohol in order to, continue the grooming. And so for whatever that's worth, she may have tried this before, but she may have been unsuccessful at it. But we just don't know. I suppose that the investigation will continue, though.
Yeah, this reminds me of the Misty Roberts, the mayor from Louisiana who was messing with her son's friend, like 16-year-old friend, but she was getting him wasted. And then she took advantage of him upstairs in the bedroom of her house. And, it's unique here, Russ, because these female predators, they do push relationships, but I think for them, part of it is attention. They like the attention. I know that's a big thing with them. The sexual act, I mean, you would still, it's a child. So to them, the sexual act, the child has to be an object that's there to meet their needs, no different than a male predator. But the male predator is pushing relationship as well. Don't get me wrong. It's how they manipulate, but it may not be, they're not doing it for attention seeking. They're doing it because they're male predators. I think that sometimes a lot of these cases with the females that I see, not all of them, but that I see for the most part, they want the attention. And once they get the attention, it's like it's so superficial, but they want the attention. And then the moment that the child starts to find interest in girls his own age or their own age, they actually do get very jealous and very possessive. So I think attention-seeking behavior is part of this too, or would you think so, Russ? Or
I think that there's a lot to it. It could be the attention, but by the same token, I mean, she's an adult. She has the ability to get attention from other places. I think it's hard to say what the exact victimology was in her mind, why she chose this path. It's usually a little bit more clear cut with males, but I think that this is just something that for me is harder to understand about the female predatory mindset.
Well, what about this? What about if it's their effort to control? So, like, basically, that's why the jealousy is a problem, because when the child starts to look at a girl their own age or whatever, an interest in their own age, they start to lose that sense of control. And sex, in my mind, with the predator, with the female, I think it's the female's way of controlling their victim. You know what I mean? It's like basically that's their way of solidifying their control. That's why maybe it's not okay. So maybe it is about attention to some level. I think so. But like Russ, I think maybe also there is a level of control that they're afraid of losing. So the moment the child does have interest towards another child their age, which would be normal, they need to go ahead and make sure that they don't allow that child to stray. So now, again, it's going to be whatever they could do to keep that child focused on them. The drugs, the whatever it is, the alcohol, the sex, because, they're not going to get probably the sex from someone their age. So and the drugs, they're not going to get from probably someone their age at this point. So they're offering them things that they can't get. But I think the sex and the stuff is just an effort to maintain control on their of their victim. That I think that could be part of it too, right? That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So for messages to meeting, the alleged sex. Oh, wait. So I think for the males, the sex is in an effort to control. The sex is what they want. That's ultimately the end game. Would you say that the sex is what the female predator wants as the end game, or is it more about the control?
I think that's just difficult, because I think that what's probably going on here is there is probably more than just trauma. There's probably a mental health aspect with regards to this, and I'm not saying that's not the case with male predators. But with females, it just seems like it's something more deep-seated, and something that that may certainly involve control, but it may just be that this is something where, like you said, pointed to before, is the attention, or they feel like perhaps someone younger might be more doting on them. And so that would go back to the attention facet.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because if you look at the male pedophile or the male groomer, ultimately, to some extent, the physical contact is the outcome. It's what they're going for. Where maybe the female, if there is a difference, the female, it's a part of it, but not the end game. Maybe the end game is the attention, and therefore the sex is the way they maintain that attention. It's possible, right? I mean, it's not.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's good to know these things because it's tough to get in the mind of these individuals, but to understand who it is you're dealing with. So by January of 2026, the online relationship had moved into the real world. The boy told police that Meza picked him up and drove him to the Walmart parking lot in Greeley, where they ate marijuana edibles and drank canned alcoholic beverages before climbing into the backseat of her car and having sex. He reported at least 2 more meetings at a local park, again involving marijuana, alcohol, and sexual contact, for a total of at least 3 sexual encounters. She would then drive him home in the evening, blending back into the role of an adult, dropping off a kid after an activity. For a 13-year-old, there is no legal or developmental way to consent to this, and under Colorado law, it is sexual assault on a child by someone in a position of trust. So how should we think about consent in a case like this when there is emotional closeness, but such a huge age and power gap? You would have to assume it's a one-way, the bond that they have developed is because the bond has been manufactured by the predator.
Yeah. I think that, when you look at this, the only thing is that there's just a different level of trauma, that is or isn't present with all of these predatory things. They're not all the same, and that's why within the confines of the law, while some things are still unlawful, certain things that are escalatory in nature, like we saw with Madison Fields and the Busby case, is really the extreme out of that. And of course, those things, they're not punished so much at the relationship level. They're punished then as rape and assault and murder in the case of Busby and all that. So it's just different levels of trauma.
Yeah, and it's unique because I could picture the interaction in the car. Let's say the boy's nervous, right? Could be. I mean, so she's going to talk him into it, but in her mind, the act is more about having the feeling that she's wanted. So even if the boy decides to, let's say, I don't want to do this, she's going to maybe make him feel guilty. Why? You don't think I'm pretty? You don't want this? What's going on? Because she wants the attention. And I think the sex part solidifies that. Where if you see a male groomer, the male groomer kind of coaches people to it. There's no guilt or shame. They're just like, it's okay, until eventually they take it by force. So, I don't know. I mean, do you get a lot of these cases where when you follow these female pedophiles or these female predators, yes, their victims, let's say, obviously are underage, but are they physically taking these children by force, or are they somehow convincing the child that this is the right thing to do? This is the next step in our relationship, and now after that, we just have to keep it secret. What do you think, Russ? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I think just that, all of these, are, it's horrible no matter which way it goes. And I think that, it's just, it varies by predator and it varies by the victimology. It's just,
right, like, when we picture predators, we picture male, let's say we picture female, right? We always picture the male, in my mind, holding the victim down and being forceful. For the female, and this is probably wrong, could be a bias in our mind, we don't picture that. We don't picture the female forcing their victim. We actually picture the female maybe sort of maternal, a little bit more comforting, and not as aggressive, even though could that be the case? I mean, are there cases where there have been female pedophiles that have held their victims down and raped them? I'm sure there has been.
Yeah, of course there has been, but what's the first thing that we think of when we see this on the male predatory side? The first thing that pops into to my mind is boy, I hope they find her alive. And in a case like this, that's a little bit more distant. I feel. I think that we don't expect that, because the really truly darker side that I'm talking about right now always seems, to have more violence involved. I'm not saying it's always the case, but it just seems like your initial thought is always that, oh my God, this could end up with a dead body. Not so much perhaps in the female
It's
offenders
interesting.
way, but it's and none of this, and this is just a look from what I think society sees. This is just something that you just, I don't know, it's just like one of those things. It's almost I don't want to say it's an outlier, but it's close to outlier type of behavior, because it is definitely more rare.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Russ, because the couple of cases we followed, Haley Busby, Celeste Rivas Hernandez, Madison Field, who was recently found, when they disappear, we do automatically assume the worst, especially if it's in the hands of a male predator. But if this was a case where she disappeared with this 13-year-old, a lot of us would think that it was driven by a relationship and that you would find them both together, that she manipulated a relationship.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't think that she would have, God forbid, but kill him. As you would with a male predator. It's interesting, and I wonder if that's because. So for the male groomer, they're always going to go to their survival instinct. The moment they feel they're going to get caught, everything's an object to them. But I wonder if with the female predator, at some point, the relationship or the need for attention supersedes the survival.
It doesn't seem that it does.
Well, no, but you think it could, though? The point that if we don't believe, let's say,
that would become an outlier of an outlier, though.
Really?
I think that the thing that you're talking about is progressively more rare at an exponential ending on wherever that chart is. That would be my guess, and that would just be based on from what I've seen. Certainly, like if we look at it not so much from inappropriate age relationships, but we look at it from the point of serial killers, for instance, where there's a sexual component to the case. I mean, how many can you name that are females? I can name one.
Yeah,
if you were to say, okay, now name one with a sexual component, where it's a male, then I can start talking. I might be able to name 100.
Yeah.
So many of them who I knew. So
California. So no, what I was thinking was this: is that the male doesn't want to get caught. At the end of the day, they're going to go on to their next victim. So their survival instinct starts to come in when they feel that there's a chance that they're going to get caught, or the victim is going to turn on them, whatever it is. Usually for the female side, nothing's ever 100%, guys. But what I see is they push the relationship. Now, I don't know whether the relationship is meant to be superficial for the attention, but somewhere along the line, they may push a relationship onto their victim, but what they really want is the attention. I think what they really want is the attention, and they like the attention. And I've seen female sex offenders who have gotten pregnant by their victims, and they do that because they're in some mind they're preserving what would be the relationship, but preserving the attention that's being given to them. And I think, and I could be wrong, but it's just an avenue that may have never been explored before. But I think, to be honest with you, for the female pedophile, the the self-preservation, it could be secondary. Even though she took off, she ran. We get it. She doesn't want to get caught. Maybe, and that's another thing. She doesn't want to get caught. Maybe she's ashamed for what she did, or I know you may think it's more than once, and I could see that. I think this may be her first time. I think she, maybe not thinking clear. I don't know if she's normally attracted to 13-year-olds, or, I mean, she's an adult. So there's no way you're going to be able to say that a 13-year-old was able to manipulate you into sleeping with them or into sending you these messages. Even if he was the one that drove the contact, you still have no excuse as a 34-year-old woman to be able to say that the 13-year-old manipulated you. So again, even if the dialogue was driven by him, it doesn't matter. You're 34 years old. But I could, and maybe the reason why she ran off is because it could have been this first time happening. She's fucking weak-minded, and I'm not. Oh, go ahead, Russ. If you got to head out, Russ, you can head out, brother. Yeah, we'll catch up. We'll catch up later.
All right. Just a couple quick mentions on a couple other things here is looking at what's going on with regards to when did mandatory reporting get involved. I never saw that. It looked to me like because there was no mandatory reporting and because it was an anonymous tip that it probably wasn't mandatory reporting. The school did seem like it got very involved at the paperwork level when it was finally revealed. But up to that point, I'm just surprised that, nothing else happened.
Well, that's the case most of the time, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, what I mean is that where was it? So anyway, I got to get going. I will.
All right, Russ, I'll see you in a little bit, brother.
Later.
All right, bro. Sorry, guys, I'm back. So what I was trying to get at is, and I try to be objective, so I'm not shifting blame here, but hear me out. She could be so weak-minded that this 13-year-old boy could have played her a bit, which in my mind, and most of us, highly unlikely. He's a 13-year-old boy. You're a grown adult, still no excuse. And then she runs off because there's a level of shame in what she did. And maybe what it was that she liked the attention. So again, she still wants that attention. She still seeks the attention. The 13-year-old boy gave her the attention, and then it became an addiction to her. So I don't know if we have a seasoned predator here, or if we have someone that just liked attention and she was able to get it from the 13-year-old boy. Again, not agreeing with anything. I still think she's wrong 100%, but it's a perspective that we should put out there. And as for the mandatory reporting, see, that's an issue I want to mention. If there were rumors that something was happening between this boy and her, and this is just on a side note, I see this with other cases, and the rumors can't be verified. Sometimes before the school decides to do something about it, the predator leaves because they don't want to get caught. And the school's like, okay, well, we're okay now. The problem's gone. Probably all rumor mill anyway. And they don't do anything. There's nothing officially documented. There's nothing there. And then they're able to go work at another location. That's why the information should be shared. Sometimes you're not allowed to share something negative about another employee. But I get it. But in positions like this, if there is concerns, those concerns should be brought to the table and weighed by the school itself. That could be taken to hiring. Sometimes they don't want to say anything because, God forbid, they're wrong, and there could be a lawsuit because you're bastardizing me on an interview. Yeah, I know, but there were these rumors. But you left before we were able to figure it out, which is shady in itself. So now you're going to go work at another school. They're going to call us, and there's got to be some type of dialogue because that's how these predators are able to move from system to system. So I think there's a gap there they take advantage of. So you got the discovery, denial, and the partial confession. So on February 12, 2026, an anonymous report triggered the investigation. So Greeley police say they were called to a home on the 2000 block of 6th Avenue regarding a District 6 staff member sexually abusing a 13-year-old Franklin Middle School student. That address is on the same block where Meza lived. Police and school administrators were alerted that a staff member might be sexually abusing a 13-year-old student, and Meza was confronted at school and initially denied any sexual relationship. Let me read that again, guys. I think I may have wrote that wrong. On February 12, 2026, an anonymous report triggered the investigation. Greeley police say they were called to a home on the 2000 block of 6th Avenue regarding a District 6 staff member sexually abusing a 13-year-old Franklin Middle School student. That address is on the same block where Meza lived. Police and school administrators were alerted that a staff member might be sexually abusing a 13-year-old student, and Meza was confronted at school and initially denied any sexual relationship. According to reports based on the affidavit, she later admitted to her husband that she had gotten high with the boy and had inappropriate contact. He then contacted police. In a subsequent interview with detectives, she allegedly admitted to having sex with the boy in the car and to deleting nude photos from her phone after learning of the investigation, which supports both the sexual assault counts and a tampering with evidence charge. Franklin Middle School placed her on leave the same day and formally terminated her on February 25th, as confirmed in the principal's letter. So again, I don't know if she's an experienced predator here, because it looks like she's making a lot of mistakes. I think this could have been her first victim, because he's still a victim nonetheless. But I think that the boy reached out to her. It's hard because you don't want to, you can't shift blame, because the 13-year-old is still a victim. But you have to look at everything. And you have to look at it and then scale back. Zoom in and scale back. There's definitely something where maybe the boy felt comfortable that he could DM her and she didn't do anything about it, which furthered the dialogue. Or they could have had some interactions before then, and that's what made him feel comfortable to DM her. I mean, I got the interaction starting with him first, but we really don't know what interactions were prior, or, I mean, the fact that she didn't report it the moment it was on the DM, that's going to be a problem automatically. That's going to hold some weight. But, I mean, could she have been so caught up for the need for attention that she was willing to take it from a 13-year-old? I mean, now that she's on the run, I mean, that's not good. She's on the run because she's probably embarrassed about what she did. I mean, but is she an experienced predator? Or is she someone that wanted attention so bad that she took it from a 13-year-old? I mean, the outcome really, I mean, the result is still the same. She abused a child sexually, but it's always good to know the reasons why. I mean, again, maybe there is a difference between female predators, male predators. I don't know. I'm getting too deep here, but could there have been such a want for attention? And then to maintain the attention. You know, so even when he goes to stray, whatever, I can give you things that you can't get from your friends. Here's some alcohol. Here's some drugs. I'll give you the physical. You know, and then that explains the jealousy when he looks elsewhere. Because one, it's jealousy because she's no longer getting the attention, and the attention is control. You can equate attention to control. I think in this context, you can equate attention to control. So I think that could be a part of it. But it's hard to explore these things because you're not looking to shift blame, but you got to look at things from all angles. So I don't want someone like taking a clip and saying, "Oh my God, you're blaming the 13." No, I'm not blaming the 13-year-old. Automatically, the adult knows better. But you got to look at every interaction under a microscope. You know, you got to look at every interaction under the microscope. So the question is, what's it tell you about the dynamics of this case that it took both an anonymous tip and a spouse choosing to turn her in to really bring it to light? I mean, obviously in this case here, she probably knew she was doing something wrong, but got so caught up in in what she was doing. I mean, think about this: having sex in public spaces with a 13-year-old kid. I mean, no shame in her game there because she was so caught up in the fact that he's given her attention. I believe attention plays a part of this, and in her mind, maybe the age really wasn't a factor, even though it is a factor. He's 13 years old. He's given her attention. But obviously she knew she was doing something wrong. And it took an anonymous note and the spouse to say something. She didn't, it had to be discovered. So I wonder if it's, because that makes me think now, so there's something else at play here now too, because attention can come from anywhere. So what else does she want? It's the control. And then the fact that he's young and she could mold him. Maybe that's a bit of a difference, because I could picture someone coming to me and telling me, well, Ganji, she could get attention from anyone. Why a 13-year-old kid? So what's the added part to that? And now maybe that crosses into the control is maybe a molding. Yeah, I think that's because female predators are so real. I think we have to try to make an effort to understand them more. So I think there is some level of attention-seeking behavior behind it. But then again, the next question would be, well, why? But you can get that from any man. Why go for a 13-year-old? Because there's more level of control, dominance, and probably an effort to mold them into what you would want. You know, and maybe in some twisted way, and I have it at the bottom here, something maternal. Something maternal. God, I need one of my psychs on, but maybe something maternal. I think that could lean towards the age-specific concern. Maybe there's something maternal. All right, the charges and the time she's realistically facing. So Meza is wanted on multiple felony counts, including sexual assault on a child by one in a position of trust, continuous sexual abuse, pattern of abuse, some form of enticement or luring of a child, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and tampering with physical evidence. Under Colorado law, sexual assault on a child by one in a position of trust with a pattern of abuse is a Class 3 felony that carries a presumptive 4 to 12 years, but is sentenced as an indeterminate term, minimum to life, with lifetime sex offender registration. Enticement or internet luring of a child adds additional 2 to 6 or 4 to 12 years ranges per count, and tampering with evidence is generally a Class 6 felony with around 1 to 15 years possible. Realistically, if she were convicted on the major count, she could be looking at a minimum somewhere around 8 to 12 plus years and a maximum of life in prison plus lifetime registration. Probation is very unlikely under Colorado's current child sex offense schemes. And I think that would be, so the question here is, when you hear that she could face an indeterminate sentence up to life, do you feel that's appropriate for this pattern of abuse, and why? Yes. Only because we got to start setting the example of these female sex offenders, because I'm seeing a lot more in my feed. So you got to start setting these examples, because these are what the men would be getting, especially if it's repeated sexual abuse on one victim. This is 3 counts minimal that we know of. So if this was to go to court, I thought the battle would look like this. Prosecutors will lean heavily on her position of trust, the pattern of grooming, the boy's age, and the evidence trail. They have alleged messages, I love you, counts, sexual content, photos of drugs and alcohol, images of the two together, and her reported admissions about sex in the car and deleting nudes, all anchored by the boy's detailed account. They'll argue this is textbook child rape by a trusted school employee, not a mutual relationship. A defense team, if she's ever caught, may try to poke holes in the timeline, challenge how the messages and photos are interpreted, and present mental health or trauma history and mitigation, perhaps argue an emotional instability or dependence rather than predatory intent. They might also press on legal nuances and how the position of trust and pattern aggravators are applied, and push for a plea that avoids the harshest indeterminate exposure. And that brings me to another question: repeat offenses. So for the males, you see a lot of repeat offenses, but you can also see that with the females too. It's just, you got to understand what is attracting them to that individual. So what, if anything, do you think would be fair for a defense attorney to challenge here without crossing the line into re-traumatizing the victim? I think she's wrong, but they would do the mental health, I'm sure. That would be the big thing. I want to see something. Man, you know, what's your thoughts about the reoffending? Because I'm trying to understand female pedophiles here, female predators here. So now she's a fugitive running. So when police went to arrest Meza after developing probable cause, she was gone. Officials say she is at large, likely out of Colorado, and her photo and charges have been circulated broadly through a Greeley PD news release and social media posts. There's no public evidence yet of a detailed escape plan, no confirmed sale of assets or obvious trail, but staying hidden long-term usually requires money, transportation, and either a support network or the ability to live under the radar. Psychologically, flight can fit with both shame and entitlement. Offenders who still see the relationship as love may feel persecuted, while those who fully grasp the legal risk may simply be trying to delay a near certain prison term and lifetime registration. Either way, fleeing instead of facing the charges will likely weigh heavily if and when sentencing happens. The only thing I would say here is if this wasn't prepared and she was on the run, I mean, where could she possibly go? And my concern would be here is you have to also look at the fact that she could have took her own life too. Doesn't want to get caught, is embarrassed by what she did. I mean, let's say this was a one-time thing. She's embarrassed. I mean, there's enough there for her to want to take her own life. I mean, it could be realistic. I mean, how could you be hiding for so long? I mean, how would we not know how to find her? She's not experienced here. I mean, but she just up and ran and had a plan not to be seen. I mean, where would she go? I mean, she'd be very limited right now. She is living on the streets. I mean, there's a good chance that she could have took herself out. I think that's realistic, especially if she's not a professional predator. If somehow or another, this was her first. And we have to look at it both. I mean, could she be experienced? Yeah, but we could also say, you know what? Is there a chance? And guys, it's a fair question. Is there a chance that I don't even know how to word this. Is there a chance? Because you got to be careful, because you don't want to. Got to be careful how you say this. I have a question though, but I got to be careful how I say it. I don't want judgment on it. It's not a moment of weakness, but because it's still a 13-year-old kid. Would love to know those interactions. On those DMs. I'm sure there's a lot to read there, or before the DMs if there was any interactions there. But I don't see anybody here as experienced. I actually see, I could see it another way too, and it's not shifting blame, but you have to be fair and look at everything. I could see the maintaining control, right? So you got the attention, you maintain the control, maybe all that other stuff I added, maternal, but then you also see the payoffs. But I mean, you have no excuse here. She's a 34-year-old woman. But what about if the drugs and the marijuana and the sex was also a way to keep, I mean, obviously keep him quiet too, because of the stuff that she was already sending him. I'm going to be an asshole here, I guess, but you could look at it a couple of ways. What about if he crosses the line with her, with Texas, she says something foolish, and then he is able to use that to get what he wants. Still, she's in the wrong. And may not be probable. It may not be, the case, but you still have to look at that, even though she is still in the wrong. She's still in the wrong, but it would be an interesting angle, right? You never know with these kids nowadays. You really don't know with these kids nowadays. And again, it's not justifying what she's done, but it'd be an interesting angle, because I don't see her as someone that's experienced in this. And we've done a lot of cases on this, on sex offenders. I work with sex offenders. This is not an experienced sex offender. I think it's not someone that planned on being maybe a sex offender, but there you are now, and would be a registered one. So I'm wondering if there's a chance that it's tough. I may be digging too deep, but it's definitely worth asking, guys. This is when you go deep dive. These are the things you got to ask, and you can't be afraid to ask. Like, I want to have the good dialogues with you guys, and I like the fact that we have this great community where I don't have to feel censored, that we could just have the dialogue and just think freely, because at the end of the day, we know where the questions are coming from. But I mean, trying to understand these female pedophiles, man, they're just showing up on the feed nowadays. Last part I have here is so this case hits a nerve because it collides with our expectations of women as protectors. Research on women who sexually abuse children shows many offenders describe their behavior in nurturing or romantic terms, saying they were given affection, helping the child, or being there for them, even while engaging in obvious exploitation. Many report deep loneliness, unmet emotional needs, past trauma, and low self-worth, and they use the child to meet those needs instead of turning to a healthy adult relationship. Studies on female educators who offend highlight a pattern where the teacher leans into the caregiving role, then gradually recast it as a secret romance, extra attention, emotional confidences, late-night messages, and then physical escalation, often framed as "we're soulmates" or "no one understands me like you do." At the cognitive level, they rely on distortions. He's mature. He wanted this. I'm not hurting him. And that's to stitch together their maternal feelings and their sexual behavior. Most mothers, including those with their own trauma histories, never offend. Many become especially protective of their children. But among the minority who do abuse, researchers describe a maternal mask. The offender uses the trappings of caregiving, comfort, protection, access to get close to a child, then flips the script so that the child becomes the one meeting her emotional and sexual needs. That's one way to understand a case like Meza. She may generally have felt love, care, and protectiveness, but those feelings were twisted by neediness and distortion into a relationship where she treated a 13-year-old as an emotional partner and sexual object while still hiding, lying, and eventually running. Clear evidence she knew on some level that this was wrong. It's confusing. Maybe we make it too confusing because, it's like we know they're capable of it, but I guess when you compare the male predator with the female predator, you look at one as more dangerous than the other one. There really is no comparison. They're both predators. They're both predators. They just female, male. None of it matters. But I thought this was a good dialogue. There's a lot to lean into here. Again, I'm thinking out loud, but I definitely maybe have a psych on, try to explore those questions a little bit. Or you guys have fun. Look at the questions, see if there's stuff that you find interesting. I mean, a lot of people don't want to ask these questions, but that's how you learn. That's how you learn. So sometimes it's the questions that you don't ask that are the ones that need to be answered. I think we touched on a few of them today. So again, this question is not about. This video wasn't about judgment, but rather how do we approach this with curiosity to understand who it is that we're really dealing with? Because remember, guys, I work around sex offenders. That's in my position right now, that's where I'm at. And you got to kind of build an understanding of why they did it to address them. And it's hard. It's dark and it's hard, but it's part of the work, because in the end, if you don't understand the why, then how are you going to get at that person and try to rehabilitate, which is almost impossible on some of these, in probably all these cases, because I just got to be careful what I say now. When I retire, I'll talk a little bit more on that. But love your thoughts on this. It was an interesting dialogue. A lot to discuss on this one. There's a lot to discuss. We did it with the Misty Roberts case too, and I think I did one of another teacher. So it's interesting. It really is. I wonder if the positions matter too, because for Misty Roberts that she was a mayor, so she was in a position of power. So maybe a position of power is different than someone who's in a helping position, like a teacher or a secretary at a school. I wonder if the positions that they choose tells you a little bit about them in how they employ what they employ. It's interesting. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. Don't forget, I buy me a cup of coffee. Link to that's in the description, as well as top of the YouTube channel. Stay safe.